My name is Alessandro Svensson. I am the head of Neo4j Innovation Lab, and I'm based here in San Mateo, California, where we have our headquarters. The Neo4j Innovation Lab is a team at Neo4j. It's a global team at Neo4j that consists of facilitators, strategists, field engineers, and Neo4j data scientists, as well as designers. That do applied innovations workshops together with our customers and prospects. And we've been doing this for 2 years now. It was 2 years ago since we did our first pilot project, and we have been doing between 30 and 40 projects so far with customers from all industries and mainly Fortune 500 customers, typically working with their innovation team with the purpose of accelerating their time to validate Neo4j, but also sort of like the value proposition of connected data and graphs within their enterprise. What the use case that we are dealing with within the Innovation Lab, it's more strategic. It's working with customers that they just know that graphs are of strategic significance and that it's important for them to connect their data, but they're not entirely sure necessarily of what is our use case. We know that this is important, but we don't know our use case yet. And with all transformation projects and innovation projects, the biggest sort of hurdle, especially in these sort of technologically disruptive times, is the time to market, basically, and that you have to validate your technology choices quite quickly. Historically at Neo4j, we've seen, or in the graph space in general, we've seen that especially legacy companies take way too long to just validate the technology. It can take 9 months to 18 months just to understand if this is a good fit. And that's because connected data also implies that you have to work sort of across silos, which is a cultural big challenge for these customers. And what we wanted to do with the Innovation Lab is sort of bring not only our technology, but also help the customers identify and prototype around use cases to shorten that validation span. So really the purpose has been from the beginning to just accelerate the process of which they validate their use cases. And our methodology relies heavily on design thinking, which is a great fit and a great combination for graphs, because it's sort of invites and nurtures complexity in a very fast way and comprehensive way. Yeah, I mean, so at the end of the day, a graph is a graph, right? But what we do with our team, given that we can bring sort of facilitation, design thinking in combination with field engineering and data science, it's not really our job to define the use case. We're there to facilitate and be the graph experts to help the customer's innovation team bring sort of their domain expertise and craft the use case together. So in that respect, all the use cases are interesting, and we've been all over the map. It's been very sort of advanced customer journey use cases to working with energy companies for their supply chain, and it's been all over the map. But the interesting thing for me is to see that if you go in with a cross-functional team and the customers brings their sort of innovation team, which is almost by design cross-functional, just the pace in which we can explore and discover potential graph use cases at their company. And we do this in sort of a sprint format. So the feedback we have received that we have, together with them, we accomplish more in just a week. This could be projects that they've been working on, thinking about and contemplating and POCing for years. So that's really the sort of the core here, to combine sort of a methodology that it's a natural fit to deal with the complexities within an organization, and combine that with graphs that just does that naturally from a technical perspective. Yeah, I'm always amazed that going into these workshops that are 3.5 days, by the way, that we everything that gets produced when you sort of bring different perspectives together. In our case, it would be strategy, design, and field engineer and data science, and with sort of business units and technical expertise from the customer side that we work with. When you go in and have a very curated process, it's incredible how much we get to produce, all the way from thinking about like the value proposition with a use case to actual prototyping. Yeah, I have to say, in all the 30 or so engagements that I've been involved with, I've always been amazed. The last day, it's like, wow, how did we accomplish all this in such a condensed period of time? But that's also a tribute to these methodologies. It's really as a sort of initial validation phase, it's really it speeds up things in a way that it's incredible, and it's a great fit for graphs as well. Our sort of data models and the graph itself being both powerful but also very intuitive for everybody to kind of understand right away. It's a very low threshold to look at a graph and understand what the business problem is, or the how everything is connected, like within an enterprise, which is super complicated if you don't have that visibility. I mean, a lot. So of course there's already, I mean, the past 10 years, basically especially in the consumer web, every company that have had this sort of disruptive effect on their industries have graphs sort of at the core. The difference between getting to a point where you can leverage the connections in your data as opposed to not doing that, it's extremely disruptive, and the competitive advantage of being enjoying kind of like the connectedness of your enterprise and everything from like data network effects to all of that. It's extremely powerful, and there's a ton of evidence for that. You can just look at the Googles of the world, and that's a really good use case to study. But then from an innovation perspective, I think it's interesting because I think graphs have that. Given that the technology itself is there to connect things, it sort of lends itself to be a solution also for the cultural problems that especially large enterprises face with innovation. Because if the data is disparate and in silos, that means that the company itself will also be disparate and in silos, right? And a lot of the power comes from connecting all of these the knowledge base at a company, or the data to data from different silos and areas of the company to build better services and better products and all of that. So graphs are. We don't like shy away from that complexity. It's actually the area where we thrive. Graphs is not great for flat data. It's awesome for connected data. So when you have connected data use cases, you're going to operate at a deficit if you don't adopt this sort of, first of all, technology, but also mindset. And then I think there's also a concept in innovation that we love, that it's referred to as the adjacent possible, which means that if you have a network of things and you add a data source, so say we have, customer data and product data, and we add transactions to that, almost like intuitively you see new opportunity, new use cases by just like adding things on. So your next innovation is, the lowest hanging fruit would be to look at what is the adjacent possible to what we're already doing. And that's also just kind of a natural fit for graphs. And the data modeling itself sort of invites to that. But if you as a business user or as a strategist can tap into that sort of way of thinking about a use case or your data, it's a very good creative space to be in, to think about other opportunities as well.